How many have you ever seen the Maya Lin fountain that's at the heart of Newport, Rhode Island, right in front of the big Episcopal church? Well, then I'll have to describe it to you. It's a poem and a sculpture that is dedicated to the people who cut stone there. And it's a gorgeous piece of cut stone that has 3 differently alternating spires of water coming out of them. And all around the fountain, she has chosen words from stonecutters from the 16th and 17th and 18th century. And it's all meant to honor the work that these good men mostly did. She honors real stonecutters, the kind that actually cut stone. The great craftsmen who abound. How did people figure out how to cut stone? They did, and we don't really know how. The stone cutters describe, as Micah just read, releasing the beauty of the stone, of building fireplaces and hearths and chimneys and things that worked together to bring people light and warmth. Most of these stonecutters, as I said, were men, which proves that not all men are terrible. Some actually know how to use force and power for good. Eric Wood, on the front page of the bulletin, is also a good man. He's an architect. He speaks of his work as a constant process of uncovering in order to release beauty. He says, "We uncovered the rock wall to find the stone steps, and we dug out the stone steps and discovered pathways leading down into the forest." It has been a continuous process of uncovering. Tim Cotton is also a good man. Again, a man who uses his power for good and for connection and for fun. He's the author of the now viral Bangor Police Department Facebook page. Now, how many of you have seen that? Oh, come on. Where do you people spend your time? When Officer Cotton took over the Bangor, Maine Police Department Facebook page, in 2014, it had less than 10,000 followers. Since then, the page has nearly 173,000 likes, which is more than 5 times the population of Bangor, Maine. The main celebrity on the Facebook page is a guy known as the Duck of Justice, and he's wearing a wreath on the front page of your bulletin. Officer Cotton describes what happened when he took it over after being a detective and mostly working with sex crimes and how depressing it was. They said, "We need somebody to manage the communications department." And he said, "It's me. I'm out of here. I want to go do that." And as he was moving into his closet of an office, which used to be the DA's office, he saw the duck. And he said, "If you ever get rid of that duck, I'd sort of like to have it." And he put it on his cop car, and he turned it into the logo for the Facebook page, which is mightily visited. What Officer Cotton is trying to do is give cops a good name, the kind of cops who communicate and who have mascots and who are funny. Check out the Bangor page. My childhood pastor was also a good man. His name was Pastor Whitty. He knew how to break up fights. He knew how to teach. He walked around in a black cassock all the time, not even a little white collar, just this long black robe, looking severe. He was, of course, a surrogate parent for me, as many of you know, but mostly he taught me about Advent. He just loved Advent because he thought that Bach wrote the best of his music for this period. And he loved Bach, too. He once told me that the entire meaning of Advent could be summed up in the Perry Como song that we will sing later in this service. Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away. That, said Pastor Whitty, was the entire meaning of the incarnation. Heaven, earth. Heaven pocketed. Star falling. God coming down to raise Jesus up. So I make all these comments about good men, and there are more good men. Rethel Bean comes to mind today, who, I'll speak more about him later, said he couldn't stand the idea that the meeting room would be naked on the second Sunday in Advent, and so he brought in flowers. It's nice, right? Yes. I make all these comments about good men because there are some other people who aren't so good. They're not incarnational, but disincarnational. They're not incarnational, but anti-incarnation. They're even anti-flesh. The constant drip of self-denigration that sexual harassers cause in other people ain't no fountain. And it's not beautiful. It's hurtful. And certainly, there are a lot of good men. But there are some men who cut women, and the cuts last for a really long time, and lost hope, and lost power, and a lost sense of self, even an inability to be close to God, much less other men, or to enjoy sex. When women are harassed, as frequently as it appears we have been, by so many people, it matters, it hurts. It doesn't just hurt once, it hurts a lot of time. How different it is to be constantly cut down instead of being constantly built up. Oh my God, it's the world of difference. It's like the difference between heaven and hell. It's a huge difference to be built up, like what Pastor Whitty did for so many, or what Tim Cotton does for cops, or what Eric Wood does for buildings. Some Asian cultures have a word for this being cut up and estranged and put away and isolated even from your own experience. It's called lin chi. It means slow torture. Psychologically, it is described as death by 1,000 cuts. Death by 1,000 cuts. Where you get hurt once, and then you get hurt again, and then you get hurt again, and then you get hurt again, and then you get hurt by the hurt, and then you get by the hurt of the hurt of the hurt that won't go away. Today, we call this kind of ling chi microaggression. We can also see microaggression when people have leg monitors put on them. When that happens, and we're going to, during our time of prayer today, address a man who is here with us and who is wearing a leg monitor right now, put on him by the federal government. We're going to address a kind of cutting and hopefully come together around how people shouldn't be leashed and how these leg monitors cut into your skin while you wear them, combining physical pain, psychological pain, and insult all at once, like sexual harassment. Incarnation, in contrast, binds our bodies to our souls. Disincarnation, or anti-incarnation, tells your body and your soul to split off, because in the dehumanization of the woman or the dehumanization of the person wearing a leash, we are told that we are just bodies and not souls, which of course is wrong. You see, what good men have in common is an ability to think outside the tree, outside the box, outside the instructions to be powerful. They create beauty and connection and celebration and use every occasion as a stone cutter. Whether they be a cop or an architect or a pastor, they build things up, they link things, they especially link body and soul. They make things beautiful. And this, of course, connects me to Mary, who is the heroine for the day. She has a powerful experience of knowing that she is carrying God inside her body. She is pregnant with God. She has a soul and a body connection that is pretty much a wowzer. She gets not just the lateral connections, but the vertical ones too. She joins Maya Lin in seeing and naming the magnificent, as in the Magnificat, of what God is doing in the world. What God is doing is linking things that have been thrown apart. God is throwing you a star and say, put it in your pocket, don't lose it. God is bringing heaven down to earth, sky to land. Mary also has a very powerful theological analysis. For a peasant girl, she sounds like she went to seminary. What does she say? She says, God scatters those who are proud in their inmost hearts. That's where the breakdown starts. It starts in your inmost heart. Being scattered is what happens when evil cuts us up. We are flung apart. We are disconnected. We are not allowed engagement. What Mary says is that the proud will be scattered from the inmost parts of their hearts. What is pride? It's something that happens inside us. It is there that sexual predators and sexual harassers begin. They begin in their inmost thoughts. It must be awful to think that you can't touch a person on your own terms or out of your own validity, so much so that your inward pride forces you to force yourself on someone else. It must be awful to be a person who forces sex on another person, as if you weren't worthy of it any other way. Or awful, of course, to be a person who has sex forced upon him or herself. That is death by 1,000 cuts, 1,000 threats, a daily drip of denigration. So we are in a constant process of uncovering, of linking, of scattering. Linking is what the star-pocketed people do. We bring gratitude and grace to our inmost things, and we cut the pride out. I was lucky enough to be in New Orleans this week. Yes, I was at a meeting, but I made sure to have lots of fun. There were some enormous trees, not just beautifully decorated, but white lights in the gazillions around these gorgeous trees. And I was riding in the warm Louisiana night, deciding not to go to Alabama to campaign. And there was another tourist sitting next to me, and he said, "Don't you think those trees are kind of overdone? Isn't that just excessive?" And I said, "Oh, yes. You bet. That is so excessive, so overdone. It is exactly what God is like in this season of Advent. God is ridiculously extravagant and clearly has hopes for humanity that have very much exceeded our capacity. We're given a great feast and we turn it into a great famine. We're all good enough. to have beautiful, consensual, powerful sexual relations. We're all good enough. We don't have to force it on each other. In New Orleans, there were also a couple of parades. You know how everybody, no matter what, throws a parade in New Orleans and puts on the beads? In Advent, for Christmas, right before Advent, right after Advent. If somebody's cat has kittens. They had a sinkhole develop in the middle of the town once, and everybody was so surprised at the sinkhole, they decided to have a Sinkhole de Mayo parade. Now that's what I call excessive. And that is what the divine is doing with us. My childhood pastor, Pastor Whitty, was right. Nobody deserves a leg monitor. Nobody deserves a leash. Nobody deserves to have beautiful things forced upon them. We are here to catch a falling star and put it in our pocket and never let it fade away. Amen.